Shall we get started?
Yeah.
Welcome back, Friday Night
Oh,
Friends.
we're really getting started.
Oh, Sam wasn't ready. Welcome back, Friday Night Friends. Today, Sam needs to go eat dinner, so we are going expeditiously.
To be fair, that is every day.
That is every day. Hopefully, you're listening to this in the daytime, so it will be Scary Movie Fright Day. I don't know what I'm talking about. Today, we're talking about a Stephen King classic, and honestly, one of the saddest movies I've ever watched in my life, Carrie.
This is our second episode about a Stephen King book turned into a movie. I think this one was more of a winner, where the prior one maybe wasn't.
Ooh,
So,
guess we'll have to talk about it and find out.
Yeah, let's hear about it. This is Scary Movie Fright Night,
a new podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered.
Oh. Okay.
And now you have that recorded.
And we're back again. The theme for this week's movie was classic Stephen King movies. And I say classic really just because there are some new iterations of movies that Stephen King had written, books or short stories about that had become movies. So we went from ones, particularly from my childhood, that were kind of fan favorites. So as Sam mentioned, it's the second one we've done this season. The first one being earlier, The Shining. If you haven't listened to it, go back, take a listen. But listen to this one first. Or listen to both at the same time, one in each ear. Don't know how that'll work out.
I love your guidance for how people should listen to the podcast.
Do this, do that, or do none of it.
Do whatever
as long
you
as
want.
you listen. Yeah, do what you want. It's your journey. It's like a choose your own adventure podcast. Just have a good time. As long as you don't press stop. Anyway, but first and foremost, this is the second time that we've done this, but Sam is going to give us a super duper quick recap for the folks out there that maybe didn't watch the movie, haven't seen it since 1976, or just, they want to hear this episode so bad that they just didn't get a chance to listen. So, over to you, Sam.
Okay, here we go. The movie opens to a group of high school girls playing volleyball. We're first introduced to the lovely, sweet, innocent Carrie as the social outcast, and some rude high school bitches walk by and slap her for absolutely no reason on the way to the gym class showers, where moments later, Carrie experiences her first period. She panics, having never been told about menstruation. Her classmates shove her, taunt her, throw tampons at her before the gym teacher, Miss Collins, tries to intervene and does her best to calm Carrie down by slapping the shit out of her while she's curled up naked in the shower. Her mother tells Carrie that her menstruation was caused by sin, and she locks Carrie in an altar-like prayer closet to pray for forgiveness. Back at school, the teacher, Miss Collins, reprimands Carrie's bullies, punishing them with a week-long military-style detention class, and when the Regina George wannabe Chris talks back to the teacher, she slaps her too. Chris throws a hissy fit, walks off, tells the teacher, "This will not stand," and then Miss Collins revokes her right to attend one of the most significant events in a person's life, her high school prom. Plotting vengeance against her classmate for absolutely no reason at all, since it was her own fucking actions that got her into trouble in the first place, Chris and her boyfriend, pre-Grease Lightning John Travolta, violently murder a pig to drain its blood into a bucket, which they then place above the school's stage in the gymnasium. Meanwhile, Sue Snell feels bad for Carrie and asks her handsome and popular boyfriend, Tommy, to invite Carrie to the prom. Carrie's naturally skeptical, but she's simultaneously discovering that she has telekinetic powers. Her weird as shit mom tries to stop her from going to the prom, but Carrie patiently explains to her mother that the adult word for pillows is actually breasts, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with making yourself a lovely dress, doing your hair and makeup so that you feel fabulous at one of the most important nights of your life, your senior prom. When her mother just won't let it go, Carrie raises her eyebrows, makes her eyes really wide, pushes her mother onto the bed with her telekinetic powers, gets her to shut up, and then she darts off to prom. On the way to the prom, Danny Zuko's feelings get hurt when Regina George calls him a stupid shit, so he slaps her. Then Tokyo drifts the car across the street. She tries to sweet talk him. They kiss. They fight again. Then she perfectly enunciates his name over and over while giving him a blowjob. At the prom, the teacher tells a boring story about getting blisters at her senior prom years ago. Then Tommy convinces Carrie that she is beautiful and she deserves to be loved, and they dance and they kiss. And Carrie finally begins to feel accepted by her peers. She's chosen for prom queen. And then on the stage, the bullies pull the rope attached to the bucket of pig blood, giving really a nice enhanced Scarlet Witch effect to her homemade dress that honestly I think she pulls off really well. The empty bucket then hits Tommy in the head, which might have killed him, not really sure. And in a totally valid, warranted response to being bullied, Carrie turns up the heat of the party, using her powers to seal the doors so that nobody misses out on all the fun. She busts out a fire hose before going full Daenerys Targaryen and lighting a few fires, and really things start to get electric. When Regina George and Danny Zuko attempt to run Carrie over with her car, Carrie channels her inner Stranger Things L, flipping the car, giving us all the satisfying explosion. And if all that wasn't bad enough, Carrie gets home and her own mother literally stabs her in the back with a kitchen knife before Carrie demonstrates how well she could do as a Top Chef contestant, but also crucifying and killing her mother in the process. The end.
Well, while I will say that was very well done, I think I won last week because that took you approximately 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Listen, there was a lot happening in this movie, and I didn't want to leave out any of the juicy details.
That is true. That was true. You had to capture it all. Even some of the most important parts. I appreciate that you caught every slap because, just to jump in for one of the notes I made was people like to slap each other. Like, is this just something that was, back in the 70s? Everyone's slapping everyone. Coaches
This movie
slapping kids,
slaps.
people slap boyfriends slapping girls, moms slapping daughters, coaches
Yeah,
slapping kids that they're trying to help. It's just it was
it's a different
aggressive.
time.
There was a lot of hitting, a lot of hitting. Um, definitely like you said, different time.
Well,
Um,
I was kind of wondering when I was watching this. I was like, was that normal at that point in time? Like, could you go to school and get slapped by your teacher, or was that just in the movie as like, oh, this is like a that they're the, the rough situation between the
yeah.
student and the teacher? I mean, I was like,
Eh,
when my parents were in school, did they get like
right.
pushed around by their teachers?
Well, and Chris said to the coach, she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have your job for this," which she obviously didn't. Um, but yeah, I wondered the same thing. It was obviously, yeah, it was an interesting point.
Yeah, I couldn't
Um,
make up my mind about the teacher at first. I was like, "Oh, she's protecting Carrie. Oh, she just hit that child. Oh, she's trying to stand up for the outcast. Oh, she's putting the kids through this like weird military style detention
like
class for a
physical
week.
training.
Oh, she just slapped the other kid. Oh, she's checking on Carrie. She's like trying to make her feel better about herself." But
Yeah,
yeah, it was just like back and forth. I was like, "I'm not sure how I feel about this lady."
yeah. But all the slappy happy stuff aside, you see what I did there? What did you think? I mean, we'll go back to the top. From the top. What did you think of the
From the
movie?
top. Okay. I, you know, I want to say the words that I want to say I liked this movie, but that always feels weird to me when we're talking about scary movies.
Okay. Well,
I
that's
think,
because you're new to the genre. It's okay to like a scary movie because well, I was just having this conversation with Shelly. It's what makes it weird about what we're doing. And obviously, there's been 757.5 scary movie podcasts before us, and there will be approximately 757.5 after us. Um, and there's a whole genre that people love, and it's their favorite genre.
yeah,
But for us to come here and we make light of Freddy Krueger murdering children, and obviously we don't condone any sort of like violence of that sort. But it's how
yeah,
we
speak for
discuss it.
yourself.
Well, that's true. You are.
Just kidding.
Um, no, but it's an interesting point that we've kind of tapped into here is we're making light of these situations and we're joking about
Yeah,
it and we're talking about it. So liking it doesn't mean that we like the actions within the movie, but did we find the
right.
movie entertaining? I think this movie, and we'll talk a little bit more. I think this movie has a different feeling for me than one of those campy Nightmare on Elm Street movies or one of those other ones. This one had a different feeling specifically that made me feel a certain way, different than your average horror movie. I think.
What was that feeling?
Okay, well, um, so this movie was sad.
Yeah,
So a couple feelings. One, right? Like the movie is about extreme bullying, right?
yeah,
And so I think that any anytime, especially I think that in today's day and age, we're more mindful of it. I hope, but from the nieces and nephews that I have, I think growing up, I think generally speaking, in most places, people are more accepting of people than maybe they were in my childhood. I was bullied a notable amount as a kid, not to Carrie levels by any means. So, but even when I watched that movie as a kid, think about 70s and 80s movies. How many of them had to do with like being bullied and overcoming it? So like, and I don't have a list here, but like Karate Kid, kid's bullied, he learns karate, he wins the tournament. Hooray, the bullied kid wins, right? I was thinking about this earlier and now I'm drawing a blank, but I think that that's an easy through point for a movie,
Yeah.
especially in that time frame, you know what I mean, where it was just kind of
Yeah.
more normal.
Yeah.
But this movie, like, it's extreme in my notes, extreme bullying meets crazy home life. So she doesn't even have a support system at home. Her mom is a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or a lot. And then at,
To
at
say the
school,
least.
like this girl, it's like there's no respite. Even the
Yeah.
nicest girl who like tries to help her out later, um,
Sue?
Sue, right? Even
Yeah.
she gets caught up in the beginning, right? She gets caught up in the mob mentality and they're all laughing and throwing stuff at her. So there's no hope. It's like it's like high life meets high school.
Yeah.
It's like a like this
Yeah.
girl is stuck in a black hole floating on forever. She will never be normal. There's no one to teach her how to be normal because her home life isn't going to teach her that. Like had she survived this movie and not, killed a bunch of people in the process, then like what would her life have been like? So it's so
Mm.
one that's one of the things that is just like sad. The immense bullying is just like you feel bad for her character.
Mhm.
And honestly, so to just throw out my other big feeling that's at the top of my notes, right, is mixed emotions, particularly for me, because I saw this movie a million years ago. I think in 1976, this movie comes out. You watch this movie, you're rooting for Carrie. She goes to the scene, she shuts the door, and she's taking everyone out. She's doing the thing, and you're like, yeah, you know what I mean? That's like a root for her moment, the way you root for the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I think that in the culture we live in today, I watched that movie and I'm like, oh, this feels like I'm watching a telekinetic version of a school shooting. Like the kid is bullied and then takes everyone
Oh,
out.
wow. Yeah.
And so it's interesting in that fact that like in 1980 people watched it and they felt a certain way, but in
Yeah.
our lifetime so much has changed and we've seen so much as far as school shootings go, right?
Yeah.
And that like it made me feel weird because it
Interesting.
doesn't hold up anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
or it's like frozen in history for what it was. But now I watch it and it makes me feel different because I
Yeah.
don't know how to root for her in this situation because it feels,
Yeah.
if
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say okay, so I was gonna say too, and as you were talking about that, this kinda made me realize I think one of the reasons I like it is because it's different from other scary movies in that
Mhm.
a lot of the other scary movies that we've watched, the main characters are trying to get away from whatever the monster is. You know, they're running from Freddy Krueger, or they're trying to get away from the guy in The Shining, or
Yeah.
the characters are innocent and they're trying to survive. In this movie, it's centered on Carrie, who, I mean, she turns into the villain because she ends
Right.
up using her powers and creating this chaos, but she's the one that we're rooting for. She's the one who we feel bad for. So
Right.
she's like the victim, then turns in, it's like a
Right.
villain origin story or something. And so I like that. I like that this movie was different. It's like I love a good villain story. I
Yeah, yeah,
loved
yeah.
Thor Ragnarok is one of my favorite movies because the villain is so good.
Right,
So like
right.
I liked that it kind of humanizes the villain, but what makes it complicated is I wouldn't want. Well, let me say this: at first, I'm watching it and I'm thinking like it is satisfying to see her take revenge. Like it's kind of
Right.
like I mean, it's not fun. It maybe sounds like kind of a twisted way to say that, but
No,
it's
but
like when she flips the car at the end and like the shitty people, you're like
right.
that they got what was coming to them. That's what I was thinking. They got what was
Right.
coming to them
Well,
because they were bullies. But
And
in the
that's
context of this of today and
right.
thinking about, the mass shootings happening in the US, it's like, well, I don't want that. That is I don't wanna justify that. That doesn't feel good. Like, to say, "Oh, well, those bullies had it coming." Like, that
Right.
clearly is it's like, it's a different world. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's a weird place to be in, right? Because we watched Megan. We don't think that any neighbor who is a little bit of a jerk should get killed by our AI doll, right? But we
Right.
laugh about it, we joke about it. It's part of the genre. Um, but this one, the specificity of this situation and the parallelisms that to some things in
Yeah.
society currently, I think are what make it, what made me draw that line, right? Because in
Yeah.
any other given movie, we're literally cheering on people stabbing people and like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's weird. It's a weird, I don't have a better word for it.
I was gonna
And I don't know
say
if other people would feel the same way. That's just what I felt.
without okay, I wanna go down a tangent that we weren't maybe prepared to go down. And I got some, like, really great movie trivia that we should come back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
and some other things I wanna talk about
yeah,
the movie, but we're talking about bullying, and I kinda wanna get real for a minute. I mean, this is like therapy with Chris and Sam again.
yeah,
But I was talking to one of my siblings recently, and we were talking about just what it was like growing up. We were just kind of, like, reminiscing on, like, life in the '90s, and, I have 3 siblings and, one brother and 2 sisters, and I'm gay. My brother's also gay, and we were just kinda thinking back on, like, gosh, what was it like in, like, high school and middle school? I mean, I was, like, deeply closeted,
right,
but realizing many years later as an adult that, like, I think we probably normalized the ways that you're treated. Like, I don't think either of us were, like, severely bullied, but I
yeah,
think that there was times where you realize that you're different, right? Or I mean,
hmm,
there definitely were times where we were bullied. I remember one time in middle school, somebody wrote in the wall, I mean, on the wall in the girls' bathroom, something like "Sam Irvin is gay" or "is a fag" or something like that.
right,
I was like 12. I didn't know what it meant to be gay. I didn't know my own sexuality, but some other middle school kid
yeah,
decided they were gonna go write that on the bathroom wall in the girls' bathroom, and a friend of mine told me or told a teacher or somebody about it, and they ended up calling my mom and all this stuff. And now that I think about it, it's kind of weird because I remember after hours, we went in. I remember going into the bathroom and seeing it and being like,
yeah,
Why are they bringing me in? They should have just like cleaned it off and been like, he doesn't need to know about this. Anyway, this is a long tangent just to think about like the effects of bullying. I think a lot of times it's easy to like sweep that shit under a rug and be like, whatever, everybody gets bullied. But, in this day and age, it doesn't need to be that way. Like,
right,
I think we got to evolve past, prior generations, and, teachers have stopped slapping children in schools,
yeah,
hopefully. Maybe
yeah.
that's,
Unless they
the
deserve it. No, I'm just kidding.
unless they really deserve it. But I don't know. I think bullying is it's a tough thing, and it's something that impacts people years and years and years after they experience it, and sometimes you don't even
Yeah.
really understand what the impacts are until you unpack all that as an adult.
Yeah, yeah, it's just kinda crazy, and I think generationally, I mean, I think that, it's like anything, I think, in society, I think it's like the stock market, right? Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, as long as we're trending in the right direction overall over a period of time. No matter what the situation, the category, the leaders of countries, you know what I mean? As long as in the grand scheme of things, you trend in the right direction, and I think language changes over the period of a decade, people change over the period of a decade, things that people didn't realize were offensive change over the period of a decade. Um, I think that us growing as human beings and becoming more sensitive to the words we say and how that might be taken and what those words mean and what those words mean to people. Um, I'm not innocent of it. You know, I was in the Navy since I was 18 years old. So, we people joke around and be like, "Oh, you're gay," right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and but then why are we using it as a negative thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so like growing and understanding it as a society and a culture to realize that like words mean things. And even when just messing around, don't use what makes a person or a group of people unique as a way to degrade other people, right? Others, their looks, their beliefs, their sexual preferences, etc. Um, I think that's the way we grow, right? Is like we find other ways. I can say you're stupid. I don't have to, like. Anyway,
You
you
don't
get
have
the
to beat
point.
around the bush. Just
Yeah,
call a spade a spade.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's why I like this movie. Is I think I could relate, maybe not as dramatically to Carrie,
Hmm.
but there's this idea of like it's kind of that like revenge fantasy of like, oh, if I
Yeah,
could only get back at my bullies, what would I do? And watching it, I was drawing tons of like little connections to other movies that I've seen that have all come out in the years since Carrie was released. And it kind of, I don't think any of these were necessarily intentionally connected, but like I wanted to share a couple of examples.
yeah.
Did you see any of the um, Fantastic Beasts movies? The
I
like,
saw a couple. Yeah, I don't know if I
they
saw them all. I don't think I saw the most recent one, but I saw at least the first and second one, I think.
So the first one was the one where the kid basically turns into the big like demon cloud that like floats around New York City and like destroys buildings and stuff. Do you remember
Nope.
that? Nope.
Apparently, I
Well,
didn't pay attention.
that's okay, irrelevant. But the point is, because I looked this up, that in that magical beasts world, or in J.K. Rowling's wizarding world, the
Hmm.
thing that the kid turns into is called an obscurial, which is
Okay.
what happens when a young wizard or witch develops a dark parasitical magical force known as an obscurious as a result
Hmm.
of their magic being suppressed through psychological or physical abuse.
Interesting.
According to Albus Dumbledore, an obscurial could possibly be healed by replacing their feelings of alienation, which ultimately
Mm,
created their obscurus with a sense of belonging. And it made me think of Carrie being, not the monster that we see her turn into is a
right.
result of that abuse and that
Yep.
alienation. That's like if people had only been kind and treated her with respect, then the outcome that happened wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, like, I think it ties in. I think what was probably well done is, right, if she had some sort of support system at home, maybe she could have come through it, but, like, it's her hearing her mom say they're all gonna laugh at you, and then having that happen, and then being covering in this blood, and
Mm,
in that moment, in her happiest of moments that might have actually been the happiest moment of her life, right?
yeah.
So much so that she didn't even believe it, right? Like, "Why are you asking me out?" Which, again, it was kinda weird. But then he kisses her, which I have questions about, like what was actually going to happen on Monday, like after the prom was over. But, but
Yeah, well,
all
I
that to
was
be said,
confused.
we'll get back to that because it's confusing. But in that moment, that was like on the highest of highs,
Yeah.
then you like plummeted her down to the depths of despair. And in that moment, she says, "Pick my boyfriend to burn in the temple in a bear costume." Wait, wrong movie. Um, but you get the point. Yeah.
Yeah,
So she has like a seemingly like a psychotic break, right? In that moment, there's no
yeah,
other like what do you do? Like
yeah.
like and she happens to have powers,
It
because I
also
think if
made
she
me
didn't
think
have
of
powers, she might have just like screamed and like lost her shit, right? But in
right.
that moment, she already didn't have control over her powers. When she got emotional or angry, she used them.
Yeah, that's what's so satisfying is it's like, well, in real life, what would have happened? She would have cried, she would have run away, she would have been like, all of my worst fears about me being worthless are being confirmed, and she'd be
Yeah.
stuck in this cycle of being a victim. But instead, she's empowered to
Yep.
like fucking destroy everybody. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, breakthrough. I mean, it kind of reminded me too of the ending of Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert, if you haven't finished the fucking
Yeah.
series years later, Daenerys Targaryen loses it. She's like, I've been so patient with all of you for years, and I'm just gonna burn the entire city down. That's what I'm doing. And that's kind of the vibe that I got when she was
Mm,
walking down off the stage and the
I don't get the same
fires are
vibe.
coming up and she's just like slowly walking down. I was like, this chick is in charge right now.
Yeah, but, like, Daenerys killed all the innocent people that actually hadn't wronged her. There was, like, one person in there that had, like, wronged her, and it was, like, the person that didn't die from the fire.
Well, sure. Yeah, yeah. I just mean like her
But you're saying
body
same vibe,
language.
same vibe. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
yeah. Of
Yeah,
like
you're
the
right.
release of like I have all
Yeah,
this pent up,
yeah,
anger and it's all just coming out. And
yeah.
I
All she
thought
needed
that
was a
was pretty
flying
good.
dragon.
Yeah,
If she
maybe
would
in
have had a
Carrie
flying dragon,
too.
then oh, yeah, maybe. Funny story. I think they've made 2 remakes of Carrie since 1976.
I did read that the actress who plays Sue makes a comeback in Carrie 2 with
Oh,
playing her character. But I think
weird.
Carrie 2 was like 30, 40 years later or something. So she
I don't even.
must be like the next generation or something.
That's weird. Yeah, I didn't even see it. Well, Sue, of course, ends the movie just to jump around a little bit like we do.
Yeah.
Ends the movie and like she's even affected because she's having this weird nightmare. It's as if the movie didn't end in such a like direct, you know what I mean? Like the house comes down, like she's gone.
Mhm.
It's a whole thing, but then it ends on
Mhm.
this nightmare that just seems kind of like its own. Like even she's still haunted by, by this experience that happened with Carrie. And I guess that's what the purpose of it was, right? Is to show that even that the haunting of Carrie lives on beyond her. But okay, so let's look at what else we've got here. So overall, is the movie, right? We kind of talked about in depth about how the movie made us feel, and really, we're talking about like the ending of the movie because one thing
Mm.
I thought was interesting is I found it kind of confusing an hour in because an hour prom begins about 1 hour into the movie, right? And the movie's about an hour and 38 minutes.
Mhm.
And so I noticed it about an hour in and we're approaching prom or prom is starting. And I was like, there wasn't a ton of development up to that point. It's like the whole movie was a precursor to prom. Like that
Yeah.
was the moneymaker. Prom happens, like again, that's where the production value goes in. The blood hits, it goes in silence. She's looking around, the red lights kick on. There's the 1976 eerie music, right? And then like that, 20-minute scene or 15-minute scene was like the moment of the movie. And I felt
Yeah.
like everything up before that, it was all good information. Like it was, you learn about her mom being kind of a crazy religious person. And
Yeah.
not that religious people are crazy, but her mom was a crazy religious person. Um, and you learn about the different friends and you learn about the coach and you like the progress of like, okay, this is what, they make it a little bit believable about Tommy asking her out and the coach says, hey, why are you doing this? And so they, there's a little bit of conflict there and they lead up to it. But really the movie is all about like the last 30 minutes,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I guess isn't too different from a normal movie. It's just interesting because there's just not a lot of nothing surprises you for the first hour. It's just kind of just playing
Right.
along.
Well, up until that point, if you only watched the movie and then you stopped it while she's on stage before they've pulled the bucket down,
Yeah.
you might think it's not even a scary movie. It's not a
That's
horror
true. That's
movie,
actually a good point. Yeah,
you
there's like
know?
nothing scare-inducing, fear-inducing up to that point.
Yeah. It's just telling the story. It'd just be a I don't know, a high school drama or something.
Yeah,
I mean, there were a few scenes like with the broken mirror when she
yeah,
accidentally shatters the mirror, and
and then
she,
somehow put it
uses
back
her
together,
powers on her mom. What's that?
and then somehow put it together, back together.
Using her powers.
Right, she's just holding it with a little piece of her power the whole time,
Yeah, yeah,
holding
she's
it together
powerful. Yeah,
forever. That's
she's
true.
very
That was how she
she's
was
very
honing her
talented.
powers.
Yeah,
Yeah, holding the mirror
exactly.
together.
She's holding that house up until the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the only thing holding that house up. That thing was condemned, and then as soon as she was done, the house came down.
Yeah.
What was your thought on that? So she goes in, so she walks home covered in blood. She goes home. Her mom's hiding out behind the door. She goes in, bathes off all the blood, which probably had to smell horrible. Anyway, she rinses off all the blood. She changes into her nightgown, just wants some support from her mom, and then her mom stabs her. And I'm sure you caught this, right? And then her mom dies because she's jabbed with all the knives and she's like stuck in the same exact shape as the crucified Jesus that's in her little prayer closet.
Oh, I
Um,
have trivia there. It's actually not Jesus. It's Saint
oh,
Sebastian who gets killed when
really?
he gets hit with
That's why there
arrows.
were arrows.
They're the arrows, and that's why her mother has all the knives.
All
She's
the
like
knives
the
that match the arrows. I was
Yeah,
confused about that. I was like, why does
yeah,
Jesus have all these arrows? Okay,
yep,
interesting. Well, that makes more
yeah,
sense. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, so then she drags her mom into the booth, and her mom's still pinned to the wall, and she just yanks her hand out of the. Anyway,
uh, yeah,
but then the house starts coming down, and it's like maybe it's like her emotional, like she's emotionally collapsing, but then it felt like
mm,
she died. Like it looked like she fell back, and like her eyes went still before the house collapsed. So
mhm,
is it something beyond her power that pulled the house down? Was it maybe she
mm,
was taken to hell because it was all just the devil? I don't think so. But Anyway, it was kind of interesting sequence, and I'm kind of curious to see what you like. Do you have any thoughts on like? It was just kind of a weird thing. Like it would be one thing if she likes like, and again, it's 1976. We can only apply so much, current logic, idea, thought, production to it. But if she was screaming and then like the whole house comes down, but instead she's holding her mom, and then she kind of just dies from her back wound, and the house just collapses on top of her.
Yeah, I wonder how the Stephen King story ends. I wonder if it ends the same way.
I should get
I
my
thought
mom
that
on a call.
yeah, let's ask him. Call him up real quick. I mean, so one difference that
I
I
said
read is
I
that
said I said we should get my mom on a call, but
oh, you mean your mom isn't Stephen King?
it's fine. She probably wishes she were. That's weird.
Do you think she could do a pretty good Stephen King impression? We could fake it.
We'll work on it.
Okay, we'll work it. We'll come back to that. No, I was gonna say the collapsing of the house. I don't know. You know what it made me think of actually is a Nightmare on
Mm.
Elm Street when the part that I think you hated, but I thought it was kind of cool when the mom gets sucked into the bed and there's
Yeah.
like lightning, and I'm
Oh,
like,
that weird. Yeah.
this doesn't really mean anything, but it's just an effect. That was maybe the
Yeah.
vibe I was getting. I was
Okay.
like, don't know who's pulling the house down or why it's falling. It's just we've decided the house is going to get swallowed into the earth. It
Yeah.
didn't just collapse; it like
It got
swallowed into the
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah.
So I just kind of interpreted that as like, oh, they wanted to do some effects when they were making this movie, and that's what they decided to do.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, there was I wanted to say the difference from the book and the movie, or one of the
Yeah.
differences. I don't know. This was
Okay.
Stephen King's first book that he published, and it was his first book to film adaptation as
And
well.
wasn't it just like 2 years after the book was released? Wasn't it? It was quick, right?
It must have been really fast, yeah, considering it was his first book and the first one that got turned into a movie. Because
Yeah.
I mean, there's been many.
Yeah. So it was a 1974 novel, and then this movie came out in 76. So that's
Wow, so
like,
they really jumped on it.
yeah, jump
Yeah,
on it.
jump on it. Well, one
Sorry.
difference was that she, in the book, at the end of the prom, she then proceeds to kind of destroy the entire town.
Oh,
But
wow.
they didn't
Okay.
have the budget in this one to keep that going. So
Oh, that makes sense.
maybe this was their adaptation of like, well, we're not going to have her destroy the town. We'll just have her like go in the house and the house will collapse. But I wonder in the
Yeah.
book, does she survive after she destroys the town, or how does it end? Maybe we should get the
Yeah.
book and read it.
We should. My mom probably has it. She used to have every single one. I think she's since narrowed down her bookshelves. She used to have every single Stephen King book.
Oh,
What
wow.
I would say is, next time we do a Stephen King movie, you have to read the whole book. Just kidding.
Okay.
I'll read the last 2 pages. You read all
Challenge
the rest.
accepted.
You're a
Yeah.
faster reader than I probably. So,
Maybe.
but yeah, that's interesting. The whole town versus. So maybe that is just their way of scaling it down. Interesting.
Yeah.
Circling back to what we said earlier, because you were confused, and I think I'm confused too. So the Tommy situation.
Oh,
And maybe it's just
Tommy.
because, like, you take someone to the dance and so you kiss them, and on Monday it's fine. It's just a casual kiss. No, but, he seemed like a good dude, seemed like a nice guy. He had great hair, nice tuxedo choice. I'm like, man, I would wear that tuxedo. I would also wear that hair. For anyone that's been watching our reels, I'm bald. And when I had hair, it wasn't good. Anyway, I digress. Hence my bullying. No,
Oh,
no,
no.
I'm just kidding. It had nothing to do with my hair. Anyway,
What did
moving
it
on.
have to do with?
That's first.
We
That'll
don't
be
have to
on. That'll
unpack
be a
that.
bonus episode.
Yeah, there you go.
But,
Pay to
so-
hear about Chris's bullying.
Yeah,
Just
therapy
kidding.
session where Chris is the therapist. No, therapy session where Sam is the therapist.
There we go.
But he takes her on this fun time. He seems like he's having a good time, which is interesting because she's not really talking and they're just kind of sitting there. So if they were just engaging and he was like, "Oh, you're so engaging to talk to," but then like he kisses her, they're dancing, they're seeming to have a good time. But it goes back to the question I kind of mentioned earlier. What was going to happen on Monday? Were they just going to
Yeah.
be friends after that? Was he going to talk to her? Probably not. Or maybe, I
Right.
don't know, maybe it'd be like, "Oh, hey, Carrie," but he's Sue's boyfriend. So
I thought I was really confused. I thought
Okay.
that Sue and Tommy. So at first I thought they were together, and I'm sure Sue told the teacher when they were talking about who they were taking to prom.
Right.
I'm sure that was one of the ones that she said, "Oh, I'm taking Tommy." But I
She said,
missed
yeah.
that. I
She
had
said Tommy's
forgotten
taking me. No, yeah. She
she
did.
did say that. Okay, but I had forgotten,
Mhm.
like, who Sue was or who Tommy was. And then Sue we see the 2 of them hanging out, and she asks Tommy to take she was like, "I need you to do me a favor and take
Carrie to prom.
Carrie to the prom." Wow, I just really had a brain fart. And then I was like, "Oh, maybe they're not together." And then I was like, "Wait a minute. Are they siblings? Maybe they're brother sister and they're just friends?"
No, that would be
And so I
weird.
was really confused
Brothers don't
until I
take
read
sisters to
about it
prom.
later.
They would have been bullied if the brother was taking the sister to the prom. Also, if they're both
Well,
seniors.
I had forgotten that well, I had missed
Okay,
that. I
okay,
forgot
okay.
people's names. I didn't know who was who.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay.
I did go to a well, this wasn't prom. It was a school. It was a college dance. What was it called? The formal. It was freshman year formal, and I did take my cousin.
Oh,
So
that's okay. Well, you
there's
know what
nothing
they
wrong with.
say. I They don't say
I
anything
am from South
about
Carolina,
dating your
for what it's
cousins.
worth.
Oh, okay. Well, hey,
We had a great time.
I'm not here to judge. Cousins need loving too. That's what they say.
It was a confusing time in my life for more reasons
That's
than one.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
when they were dancing and there was like the spinning camera and he was like telling her, all these really nice things and they kissed. My fear is I was like, is he faking it? Because fuck him
Right.
if he's faking it. But I was
Right.
watching it and I was like, no, I think he's being sincere. I think he's
Yeah.
falling for her. I think this is a thing now. I didn't realize, again, I had forgotten the fact that he was Sue's boyfriend. Maybe they're
Right.
friends. I don't know. But my assumption was that they were going to be a thing and Sue was just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I think a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just hope that that's the case.
Yeah.
Um, they don't show him afterwards, right? They show Sue's haunted by it. Tommy didn't have to see it. He didn't have to see what happened afterwards, right?
So
But we
what
don't know what happened to
happened?
Tommy. What happened to Tommy?
Well, the bucket, they made it very clear the bucket, the empty bucket, hit him on the
Yeah.
head, and
Yeah.
then he collapses to the ground, and then we see him being carried out by like 5 people later.
Yeah.
And I
By
was
Miss
like,
Collins.
did the bucket knock him out and then he died? Or like, what just
I don't think
happened?
so. No, but surely I think that they probably. I don't know. I don't know what happened to him, but what I can say is that prom was probably a bucket list item for him.
Oh, bucket list
Okay.
item achieved.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I had to say it.
You had to do it.
I
Okay,
had to
wait.
say it.
Here's another thing I was confused about
Yep.
was Sue's intentions.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Were you on board were you team Sue the entire movie? Were you like, "Oh, no, she's cool," or were you also confused?
I think that I was Team Sue. I think that she had only good intentions. I think that at the beginning, right? I think that was an interesting point that she even got caught up in it, and the coach was much more mad at her than she was at anyone else because it's like you were better than this. I know you're a good
Mm,
person. Why are you being
mm,
an asshole? The rest
yeah,
of these girls suck. You don't suck. Be better.
yeah,
Or at least she didn't say any of that, but that's what I took away from it. And then Sue at that point was like, "Oh my goodness, I owe it to Carrie. Let's make her prom night well." And then she came in, she sees the rope, she sees the bucket, she
yeah,
looks underneath and she's trying to stop it,
yeah,
but then she gets dragged out by the coach, by Miss Collins. Um,
yeah. That
and
was the
so I
moment that
think,
confused me
what
when
do you mean?
she comes so
Like, why
so
was she there? Yeah,
yes. All along,
okay.
she's
That
been
part
like sweet, and she's like, "Tommy, ask her out." And then she gets up to leave dinner, and she shows up at the gym, and she's watching from behind. And I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh no, she knew about the whole plot, and she's watching to like see it go down. She knew about this whole thing. She masterminded it." And then it was like, "Oh no. She was just checking in on things, and then
I,
happened to notice
I just think it
what
was a
was about
plot
to happen."
hole. I think it was a way to make her be there, to just go and be like, "Oh, I did this good thing for Carrie. I want to see her and Tommy together. I want to see if Carrie's having a good time." It
Yeah,
felt a little plot holey in the execution, because she was like sneaking in the back to like watch.
yeah,
I would be curious to go back to the book and see how that scene plays out and what Sue's role is in all of it.
yeah.
Because it felt a little weird, but I do think that the intent was, she tried to stop it. Um,
So I actually thought when notices what's about to happen and they
mhm.
sort of draw out the moment where she's like slowly
They
walking and
really
she's
draw the moment
looking,
out.
like tracking the rope and the teacher's looking at her. I actually like that because it
Yeah.
created the suspense
Yeah,
where
the
I was like,
tension, right?
"Oh, the tension." Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was and you know
You
what? I was so happy for Carrie in that moment. She was
Yeah.
so beautiful. Sissy Spacek, is that how you
Yep,
pronounce her
Sissy
name?
Spacek. She did a fabulous job.
So it's just you're like it just felt so good. She's beautiful and they're together and they're both so happy and that moment was just it was like pure elation and of
Mhm.
course that's mixed with the dread of like fuck this is about to all be taken away in the
Yep.
worst possible way and I mean that's not an enjoyable thing
Right.
but it was well done. I thought the
Yeah.
way that it was executed was really well done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I do it was very slow, but I think you're right. Like, it gave you that, like, edge of your seat. You know the bad thing's gonna happen because, honestly, they let you know what was gonna happen, right? I think that in a modern day and age, the way they would
Mm.
have executed that, right? People who hadn't read the book, they would have never showed you that there was a bucket full of blood up on top. What they would have done is they go in and they show Carrie having the best time of her life, right?
Mhm.
And then as she's getting up on the stage, they like cut to scenes of them filling a bucket. Then they cut to scenes to this. Then they cut to scenes of them putting the blood on top. And so you're realizing it as Sue's realizing it. That you're like, oh
Mm.
no, right? Like, obviously, it's a horror movie and it hadn't been scary to that point. However, I think because of the way and so you could have had that built up tension in the modern, if they would have done that differently, but that was their way of, like you said, I think building it up and just making it like so once it happened, you were just like, and then honestly, and then it hits and then it goes quiet. I think it was like
Yeah.
that. I think it was a combination, right? The way they slowed it down and every moment, and then Sue's getting dragged out and then the blood hits and then it goes silent. So I think it was like from that point through when she starts, doing things with her telekinesis, telekinetics, telescope. Is it
Telekinong
telekinesis?
ding ding dong. I don't
Is it
know.
telekinesis? With her
Telekinesis.
mind, yeah, with her
Yeah.
mind powers, with her telekinesis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Carrie's telekinetic powers made me
Mhm.
think of the Scarlet Witch. She
Okay.
gave Scarlet Witch vibes, which if you're not an MCU fan like me, Scarlet Witch or Wanda Maximoff is the character's name. Her superhero name is the Scarlet Witch. And there's a point where Carrie is well, multiple times where she's walking through the street, where she's walking through the gym. I think when she's walking up into her house, and the way that she's walking with her arms down by her side, but her hands are like flexed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Is and the Scarlet Witch has telekinetic powers, and she always has these like red glowing, like you can see her powers forming in her hands.
Yeah.
So she often her hands are like active.
That's true.
Whenever her body language, the way that she moves. So immediately when I see Carrie using her powers, the Scarlet Witch comes to mind. So, I was curious. I googled. I was like, "Is there any connection between Scarlet Witch and Carrie?" And
Oh,
of
it's interesting.
course, there is.
Okay. Okay.
There's an article here from the site is called Dread Central. The author is Adrian Manuel. The title is "The Scarlet Witch's Transformation from Final Girl to Carrie." So what's interesting about the Scarlet Witch, I got to catch up all our non MCU fans who don't happen to know what I'm talking about, is she's a complex character in that when we first meet her, we're introduced to her as a villain, but then
Mhm.
she joins the Avengers and she becomes a hero, helping to
Mhm.
defend the world against Thanos. But then she is tormented by the fact that her partner, her lover, is killed. And there's this whole side thing. We talked about WandaVision when we talked
Yeah.
about the actress Tiona Paris from Candyman,
Right, right.
connections there.
Yeah.
Um, but so basically, she turns back into a villain in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So she's been on this journey of like, is she good? Is she bad? Kind of depends on the context. And Multiverse of Madness, who we all know was directed by
Sam
Sam
Raimi.
Raimi. Yeah. This article kind of breaks down the connections that it has to some of the movies that we've been watching throughout this season. And all these like
That's
little light
interesting.
bulbs are going off in my head.
Yeah.
So, like in Carrie, we see Carrie, she's got like the blood on her face, her hair, long hair, she has kind of a reddish tint to her hair. And it's like, wet after she's been soaked with blood. Well, there's
Right.
scenes in the Multiverse of Madness where Scarlet Witch kind of looks the same way. She has
Right.
blood on her face. She's got the long
Yeah.
red
I
straight
actually think
hair.
it's like the oil from those Iron Defender whatever robots. I think that's what they did to make it PG-13. It's not actually blood. I think it's like
Oh,
oil from those robots.
from the
Anyway,
Ultron robots
the
or
Ultron
whatever.
robots, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so but it's made to look like blood. That's how they, like,
Yes,
kept
it's
it,
the same
like,
look. She's got
PG-13.
it's like
Yeah.
streaming down her face. Yeah. So there's that, and then but then I was thinking like at the end when the house collapses on
Oh, it's
top
like
of
at the
her.
very end of Multiverse of Madness.
Yes, when she's in the temple thing and
Yeah,
she kind of brings it down on herself.
she does.
And what's interesting, Multiverse of Madness, is we don't really know what happens to her. It's
She's
still kind of
alive.
an open question. It's like, of course she's alive, which made me think maybe Carrie's alive, which we see at the end of Carrie in the dream state thing,
Yeah,
maybe when Sue is imagining herself bringing flowers to the house and the, I guess, grave of Carrie, and
yep.
then her arm shoots up out of the end. uh, that maybe Carrie is still alive. Maybe she survived this thing, and there is a Carrie too. So is it the same Carrie?
It's
Question?
not.
Question?
There's no way. There's no way. I'm
I don't
gonna
know.
Google this real quick, but before I do, I have a theory. 1985 Chris, who is 3 years old, saw Carrie when he was -4, and then he watched Nightmare on Elm Street when he was 2. Math is hard. But my theory, this is man, this could have been like a franchise changer, is that Carrie dies and now she haunts you in your dreams, and then she meets Freddy Krueger
Oh
and they
my
get
god,
married and they live happily ever after, haunting people in
Carrie
their
and
dreams.
Freddie,
Yeah, Carrie Krueger. It sounds like it should be a
Carrie
name, right?
Krueger,
Yeah. See?
Carrie and Freddie. Oh wow. Well,
Yeah,
I think she's too good for him. To be honest, she is like a 10, and he is
that's
like
true.
a 3.
He's no Tommy. He's no Tommy.
He's no Tommy. Um, but that was another connection though to Multiverse of Madness is she does all this like she like possesses herself in other
Right.
universes and does the dream walking or whatever it's called. So that's kind of almost seems like a callback to Freddy Krueger, and like you don't know if you're in a dream state or real state, like question there. Um, and the last connection that I'll point out is the book, the Darkhold book, kind of makes me think of Evil Dead Rise and the Necronomicon book.
Necronomicon. Yeah. Necronomicon.
Necronomicon.
Nope.
Ugh.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna do vocabulary practice after.
So the point is that thinking back to Multiverse of Madness, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, there's all these like little inspirations and connections to the world of horror movies that I didn't
Yep.
see before, but now I'm starting to see how these things are all connected.
Well, and I think that's what's interesting, right? And I think it's if for no other reason, I think that's an interesting reason to go back and watch some of these classics, right? Um, because they set the boundaries, right, for future movies to come. So I think modern day horror movie people, creators, producers, directors, writers, they use their background knowledge and their upbringing of horror movies, and I think they like to tap back into that, right? So you said when you watched The Shining that you didn't realize how many cultural references there were to The
Hmm.
Shining that you had seen that you didn't realize, and I think in the horror movie genre particularly, I think that's pretty common, which makes sense. But I think it is interesting, even ones where we didn't even really think about it, right? And I didn't even
Yeah.
necessarily catch it. Also, for the record, Carrie 2, uh, it features Carrie White's half sister who also has powers. So it's like kind
Oh.
of from my super quick Google, I think it's like low key, not a good sequel.
Oh.
That's my assessment without seeing it.
Okay.
I think it's just like I think it's like a cash grab. I think it was probably just, them trying to it's like 1999. So it was like
Mm.
23 years later. I think they were just trying to make money, in my
Yeah.
humble
Yeah.
and professional horror movie opinion.
Yeah. Well, no, that is really cool thinking about the connections. I mean, I think if you had asked me before we started doing Scary Movie Fright Night, I would have said, oh, scary movies, they're all just like lowbrow. They're just trying to get you. But this is an art. I'm like waking up and understanding, the art form and how
Yep.
different, how the and how different films have inspired, different how it's
Yeah.
evolved. I'm not
It's
being
an
very
art.
eloquent right now, but
It's an
it happens.
artwork painted in blood, as some say. No one says that.
Yeah. I have a couple of trivia points about this movie that I wanted to share with you because I thought they were kind of impressive. Um, I wanted to read more about the cast because uh, I thought it was a great cast, and it was
Yeah.
kind of cool seeing like John Travolta. This was one of his earlier roles. I think he had done something before this, but this was before Grease. This was before what was the thing he was nominated for an Oscar for? And I'm like totally blanking right now. I didn't write it
Saturday Night
down.
Fever.
Yes, Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was just cool to see. So the actress who plays Sue, the
Hmm.
nice girl, Tommy's first girlfriend, so Amy Irving is her name.
Okay.
Her mother in the movie was also her mother in real life,
Oh,
Priscilla
interesting.
Pointer.
Okay.
Yes. So, and Priscilla was like a Broadway actress who turned to film and TV, and this was Amy's first movie as an
Oh.
actress. She goes on to have a full career starring in other movies. She was in Carrie too, but this
Oh,
was
she
her
wasn't Carrie too.
first.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's a little bit of crossover, sure.
yeah, yeah. She played Sue in Carrie too. Um, but what was interesting is the final scene where she has the dream sequence.
Hmm.
And she's laying the flowers, and then the arm comes up out of the ground and grabs her arm. Which, by the way, that arm was um, Sissy Spacek. It was her. That was her reaching up out of the rubble and grabbing her. And they would have used like a stunt double or someone because you can't even see her face. Like you don't even know
Right,
it's
right,
her
right.
arm. But she was adamant. She was like, "No, I want to be the one to do it. Like it's my
Oh,
character."
that's
And
cool.
so they bury her under the rubble. And they must. I don't know how exactly they did it, but
It
that
was
was
fake lightweight rebel. Yeah, yeah.
well. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, maybe she was in a box under the rubble. And maybe it was just like,
Maybe. Oh yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it was her down there.
Hmm.
But in that
She did
moment,
her own stunts. Look at
she
that.
did her own stunts.
1976.
Yeah. In that moment, Sue, she starts screaming because her arm gets grabbed, and then we
Right.
realize, oh, it was just a dream. And her mother's there by her bed, and her mother's
Hmm.
holding her arms, and she's like screaming and crying. And in real life, the mother was so taken aback at her acting. She was supposed to say Sue, and she accidentally goes Amy, and like said her daughter's actual name. And
That's funny.
they were like, we can use the scene, but and cut out her saying the wrong thing, but she was just so like, oh, like startled by her acting that she accidentally used her real name.
Oh, that's funny and
Yeah,
impressive.
and impressive.
Yeah, every
Um,
movie that I've been in with my mom, same thing happened. She's just like, "Chris," and I'm like, "Mom, we're in a movie together."
Mom, you can't be
None
yelling
of
out my
them. They
name.
all went straight to VHS.
Did
And
you when you did you okay, so you seen Carrie before? Did you remember all
I
the
had.
details?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I remembered most of the details.
Okay.
Some random stuff that I was like, not how I remember that going down. But yeah, I'd seen it for
You
sure.
knew that her hand was about to come out of the ground and grab
Yeah, I think
old
I'd
Sue with the flowers.
forgotten that there was a dream sequence until it was actually starting to take place, and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah."
So I was watching this. I was alone and watching it on my computer, laying in bed with headphones in,
Mhm.
and that part actually got me.
Did it really?
Like, yes.
That's awesome.
And I'm not like super like jumpy or anything, but I think
Right.
I just at that point I had been completely like it's gone, it's
Yeah,
over,
it's
the
over.
tension's
Yeah.
gone, I'm relaxed, I'm sad, but I'm just feeling these feelings for poor sweet Carrie.
Yep.
And then the arm comes out and there's a noise and I literally jumped.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, I was like, dang, I can't believe they just got me. This movie from like 1976 just got me to jump. But it was good. It was well done. I'll tell you one more piece of trivia, and I wanna share a scene, like a 30-second scene with
Mhm.
you, and watch this and see if you notice something interesting about this scene. Are you ready?
Yeah.
No, 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 no. I wouldn't let her go to the funerals. With Tommy and all the others gone, it's best we just go away for a while.
Did you see it? Did you
Oh,
see
it's
it?
going backwards.
Yes.
It's going in reverse.
Yes.
Yeah. So for everyone listening who didn't just see the quick clips that Sam showed me, so we basically watched the very end again, when Sue's walking up to put the flowers down on the grave. Well, I guess we can call it a grave because that's effectively where her and her mom are buried. And there's a red car in the background that if you're not looking closely, you won't see it, but it's driving in reverse. Interesting.
Yes.
So it's like a clue in that it's like a dream sequence.
Yes, so to add to the eeriness of it, like, I don't
Yeah.
even know how you think of to doing this, but they filmed the scene in reverse and then
Oh, so she
played
was
it
walking
back.
backwards.
Yes, I don't know how. You're watching, you can't they filmed it in reverse, and then they played the tape reverse, so, like, forward,
Right.
um, in, like, half speed, so it slows down and everything
Yeah.
is actually moving in reverse, and clearly, I'm sure they saw that there were cars in the background, and they probably chose to leave it in, so it's like, you don't realize it, you don't see it, but something in your brain must register that it's off, something's off?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
didn't
That's
notice
cool.
it. I just read it, and then I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I have to go back and see this."
Yeah, and I don't think I was at that point, I'm not, like, watching super closely, right? But that's
Yeah,
interesting, and you're definitely not
yeah.
looking in the background, and if you're not looking closely, it's just a
I
flash of
can't
red
tell.
going from one side to the other, right? So until you told me, "But look at the car," and I was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, why are they driving in reverse? They're gonna get in an accident."
yeah. One of
Yeah.
those things, one of those just, like, little details that's like I mean, because like I said, that was at that point in time, I was like, "Okay, everything's done, everything's calm,
Yep,
it's over, we're just feeling, like, sweet, sentimental, laying down some flowers." But
yep.
if
In
you
her nightgown, like you
realize
do.
yeah. So, anyway, that was all my trivia. Those
Oh.
were all my fun facts for the movie.
Well, that's
Um
good. I have one more trivia for you. This isn't trivia. This is really a
Ooh.
hypothetical question. This is actually, I don't expect you to answer this, but it's just a question that I wrote down at the end of this movie, and then we'll get on to your overall rating, so we can move on to next week. But first, what what I want to know is what does the origin story of her mom look like? And what I mean by that is, what was her mom's childhood like? What kind
Oh,
of house, environment, town, place did she grow up in? Because she didn't grow up there. It doesn't seem like she grew up there.
yeah.
Um, I don't really want to know. It's not like I'm gonna like go looking for the origin story of her mom, but that was a question I had with her mom. So
Where did this lady come
like,
from?
where did this lady come from? You know,
Yeah.
and she did tap into a little bit about like her boyfriend and she gave in to sin and he took me and I liked it and I should have, and then she said
Yeah.
I should have like basically said she should have killed Carrie when she came into this world. Like she's that demented that in that moment she's like, "Oh God, like I should have gotten rid of you from the start, but you were always from sin." And that's why this is all my fault. And that's why she's trying to kill her because she's like, this is all my sin carrying over to my next. Yeah, I don't. Anyway, so that's why I left with, wow, what was her? Where does she come from?
Yeah,
Um,
so many questions. Like
so many questions.
what what religious denomination is she? Where does this fanaticism come from? I mean, it is
Yeah,
extreme. Like
it's
the way
extreme.
that she talks about it, it's like she believed that even once she was married, that it was sinful to have sex in marriage. It wasn't even
Yeah,
like don't have sex before you get married. It was
it
like
was like
she was
never.
like, "We laid next to each other and we resisted all of our temptations." It's like, "Bitch,
Yeah.
you were married. You can do whatever you
Oh, were
want."
they married? Did she say they were married?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. She would not have been in bed with a man that she wasn't married
I
to.
think she said it was her boyfriend.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know. We could go back and rewatch it and find out.
Yeah, I'm not that
Irrelevant.
interested.
I think
Irrelevant.
but no, I that's an interesting question of like what got her to where she is. I
Yeah,
mean, my thoughts were she comes across as someone who it's not just religious fanaticism, it's some sort of like mental illness. So it's like there's
yeah,
some,
yeah. It's
she's like
something well
totally
beyond.
out of touch with reality. Yeah, I mean the home is in total disrepair and she's just like, "Oh, I think it's better to just lock my daughter in a
Yeah.
closet to teach her a
What do they?
lesson than it
What
is."
do
I
they
mean,
talk
she's
about over dinner for 18 years?
oh my god. I
Anyway,
mean,
I
she
don't. I don't want to go down that
ugh,
rabbit hole, but
yeah.
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 Okay, so we know that it wasn't really scary, but it made you jump in the end. However, you still have to give it a rating.
Okay,
So
wait, I have a question for you.
Oh no. I don't like questions.
How so you're getting to know my scary meter pretty well at this
Yep.
point because we do this every
Well,
episode. We give it a number.
questionable. I'm trying to fine tune it, but it's honestly kind of hard. But go ahead. You want to know what I
Oh,
think your scary meter said?
yeah, yeah. I wrote it down on a piece of paper so that I can prove to you that I'm not going to change it. I'll show you the piece
Which
of
is actually
paper.
that's actually really good because you're generally a liar, so I don't trust you.
Don't make me use my
uh,
telekinesis on you. I can send it all the way to the other side of the island.
that's not true. But okay. So from Sam's perspective, I think I mentioned that it's very sad. Bullying is very sad. It's a little bit hopeless. We look like you saw Carrie, you felt really good for her at the prom, and then you felt really bad for her, and it jumped you at the end. But however, I think it's kind of an older movie. It didn't like leave you with hopelessness. I think it just gave you some feels. So I was gonna look at the other movies and see how you rated them and then try to do an analysis, but I'm not gonna do that. I think you probably gave this one like, oh man, the first hour of it, there's like nothing scary in it. Um, my initial gut, my initial gut before I started down this just rabbit hole was like a 2. But I think that if you like in those moments you were just so in despair for Carrie with the bullying and it made you reflect on like times that you'd been bullied and then the jump at the end, I'm gonna say a solid 3.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, if you don't get the number right, we can still be friends. I will still keep watching scary movies with you. There's no pressure to get it right. This might come as a surprise,
Uh-oh.
but I gave it an 8.
What?
My
How
8
did
looks
you
kind of
give this
weird,
movie an
doesn't it?
8? How
Okay,
did you
okay,
give
but hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out.
Okay, I'm hearing you out, but I do not understand your scare meter. I do not understand what I'm literally pulling up your previous ratings because
Maybe it's more of like a 6, but like this is okay.
scarier
This is the
so
reason
this
why.
is go
This will
ahead.
make
Go ahead.
sense after I explain. So first of all, it was the first movie all season to make me literally jump. Like
Okay, that's
literally like,
fair.
oh god, like it really got me. And I
Okay.
know that's like one jump scare, but like nothing else has done that. The reason that I rated it really high is because of the emotional connection. Because of the
Okay.
emotion that I felt
Which is your
for
MO,
Carrie.
right? Like you have to feel an emotional connection to the characters
Yeah.
to to which is why I probably should have rated it higher. I said all those things, but I just
You
thought
did. You
there's
got
no
all the right
way that this was
criteria.
that high. But okay, go ahead.
I mean, you're right. I'm that might be a bit of a stretch, an 8. I
That's
just
fine. You feel what you feel, man.
that's just how I was feeling. Yeah, I mean, I think that I really in the moment where she's standing there and she's smiling and she's beautiful and she has the crown, I just really wanted that happiness, and for that to be taken away just felt like a big dagger. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's scary. I think this is what I was thinking. If I watched this movie when it came out,
Okay.
it's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
There's the teacher who genuinely tried to help her and she gets smashed
Yeah, she
by
does.
something fell. Yeah, so she gets smashed. There's the principal or some other teacher who get electrocuted on the
Yeah.
microphone. That would have really freaked me out as a kid, or as a young teenager or something.
That's fair.
Um, there's a couple other deaths that were they didn't necessarily need to be super gory or visceral to still be scary. I mean, even the
Yeah.
flipping car and exploding thing, I know I
Mhm.
was like joking about it, like being so satisfying that the bullies got what was coming to them, but like, I don't know, flipping exploding cars, that would have like freaked me out as a kid,
Yeah.
like to think like there's two humans inside of that car and the car's burning right now. Like that might be an over, I might adjust it down to a 6 or 7, but I would still, for all of those reasons, the emotional attachment to it, and I think just because it was well done, I
Okay.
give it a high scary rating.
Okay. So we'll go with an 8. Um
Okay.
so you realize this ties with High Life.
Yes,
But
and
actually, sorry, go ahead. I think that
well,
kind of makes sense.
yeah. Well, why do you think it makes sense?
It makes sense because wow, I should have definitely looked at these ratings first before I said 3 because you gave High Life. You gave High Life an 8 and it was about it being hopeless and despair and just
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
And I at the beginning of this episode, what did I say? I said that this movie was sad and it
Yep.
was likened to like High Life in high
Yep.
school with bullies. So I
Yes.
basically said it at the beginning. but then didn't apply that to my assessment of your scary rating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see if we'll see how consistent it is. It might be a little all over the place. I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. It's your scary
Yeah.
rating. You can say whatever you want. You'll probably watch, Willy Wonka and give it a 10 out of 10.
That shit is scary
So
as
do you
fuck.
recommend it? Do you recommend it? It's an old movie. It's a
Yeah.
classic. It's a yes.
Yeah, I think if you're a person who's like, I don't like scary movies because of the gore or the violence, like I think this is one that I think it makes you think. Like
Yeah.
we started this episode talking about bullying and the
Yeah.
effects of bullying, and you could replace Carrie with, instead of it being a girl who just wants to fit in at the prom, it could be, a little gay boy in middle school who kids are writing on the bathroom wall like you're gay. Like any kid that, for any number of reasons, that is trying to find their way in the world. And
Yeah.
I think that like that universality of it and the way it just makes you take a step back and think about the way people treat people. What am I trying to say? I want to say it's a good thing to watch and think about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I would recommend it.
Yeah. It definitely raises the conversation.
It helps that Stephen King liked it.
That's true.
He liked
That's
the
true.
adaptation of it. So
Okay. So Sam recommends it. For those of you that didn't watch it and enjoyed Sam's moderately quick but not super quick recap, go back and watch it. But in the meantime, while you're watching Carrie, we're going to move on to the next episode. And the theme. So I actually changed up the theme a little bit. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but
okay.
I try to make it evolving a little bit, and I generated these themes earlier in the season with the help of my wife. I sat down and I was kind of generating different ideas and how to hit different genres, some of which to hit certain movies. But what I realized is there was one whole genre that's kind of a big one in scary movies and horror that we hadn't even tapped into yet. And so I decided to move things around and make that this next week's theme.
Okay.
So since you and I are just paranormal guys, next week's theme is modern paranormal horror.
Paranormal guys.
We're just a paranormal guys. And for the record, I'm using the term modern paranormal horror. No, it's okay. I did that on purpose.
I had a delayed reaction to that.
You're like, are we normal guys?
We're paranormal.
Wait, that's not what you're you're like, what's paranormal? I don't know what that means. Okay, I digress. But modern paranormal horror, because a lot of movies that talk about paranormal horror movies, it's a tongue twister, include a lot of really, really old movies. For instance, The Exorcist from like 1973. I think I got that year right. That's a big one. That one to date, people say is super scary. I think that one still freaks my mom out to this day. Now, maybe that's because she watched it back in the 70s. So we're not talking about older paranormal movies. Because again, I'm not trying to give you three movies, one that's 50 years old and one that's 10. So I tried to group them together into something more modern paranormal. So post 2000 paranormal movies.
Okay.
So with that being said,
wait, I have a question.
Okay.
You're like, you and your damn questions.
Sam has a question.
How are we defining paranormal?
So paranormal has to do with anything that is not normal.
That's not funny, but it is so funny to me. Okay.
Okay, no. So paranormal, how we're defining it. And this was kind of tough for me to lock down the language I wanted to use because supernatural horror came up a lot for the same movies. But basically, I think what we consider paranormal horror to be is like, it's related to like demonic subgenre focusing on characters that aren't living beings. So generally speaking, unliving ghosts of some sort, unliving beings, right?
Okay.
Another old movie like Poltergeist would be one. I think The Ring. You've seen The Ring, right? I think that would be considered. That's a different kind, but that's paranormal horror, right? Because it's effectively the ghost, the spirit of this girl.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're going for, right?
Okay. So generally, like ghosts and demons.
Generally, ghosts and demons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's. I think that's a good way to capture it.
Okay.
General ghosts and demons.
General ghosts and demons.
Yeah. So the first movie on
Okay.
this list is the movie Sinister.
Sinister.
Sinister came out in 2012, and it stars Ethan Hawke. And here's the Sinister synopsis. See what I did there? True crime writer Ellison Oswald is in a slump. He hasn't had a bestseller in more than 10 years and is becoming increasingly desperate for a hit. So when he discovers the existence of a snuff film showing the deaths of a family, he vows to solve the mystery. He moves his own family into the victim's home and gets to work. However, when old film footage and other clues hint at the presence of a supernatural force, Ellison learns that living in the house may be fatal. That's it. Yeah. That's actually a pretty good, one of the better synopses, because I think it gives you just enough to give you an idea of what it's about without telling you any of the like through points. Actual plot
Yeah.
points.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's a writer, and he's
True
just
crime
trying
writer.
to.
We all
He's
love
just
some
trying
true
to make a
crime.
living. Yep.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. He finds a snuff film.
I don't know what that means.
It's a film that has snuffleupagus in it. By definition, it's like a film that shows an actual homicide, right? So like, it's not like us watching a scary movie, but it's a film of someone actually being murdered. So someone recorded it. And so he finds this film of the family being murdered, moves into the house to try to solve the case because he's a true crime podcaster. Nope, we're a podcaster. He's a true crime writer. And sorry, podcast on the brain. But yeah, so he moves into the house, brings his children. So why do we think this is a joyous movie? Because he's just trying to create a life for him and his family. He moves into a new house like you do, tries to freshen it up, put some Christmas lights up, get a tree in there, just have a good old time, write some true crime on the side. But turns out might not be a good idea.
It sounds like he just wanted the ghosts in the house to not be lonely. He's
It's
like, we're
true.
just going to pay them a little visit,
Exactly.
keep them
I
company.
mean, the more the merrier.
We don't
right?
want
That's
them
what
to
that's
feel
what
left out.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
It is pretty sweet.
Okay.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
The next one you may have heard of because it was pretty famous, I think. Well, I mean, all these movies, I think, were relatively known. But the next movie is called Paranormal Activity.
Ooh.
Came out in 2007, starring Katie Featherston and Micah Sloat. And here's the activity that you'll find in this Paranormal Activity movie. Soon after moving into a suburban tract home. What the fuck is a tract home? Hold on.
I have no idea.
Hold on.
Like a tract of land? Tract housing is a type of housing development in which multiple similar houses are built on a tract or area of land that is subdivided into smaller lots.
Well, you learn something new every day. So, back to the synopsis. Now that we know. Soon after moving into a suburban tract home, Katie and Micah become increasingly disturbed by what appears to be a supernatural presence. Hoping to capture evidence of it on film, they set up a video camera in their house, but are not prepared for the terrifying events that follow. Family moves in, they're just trying to get some home videos. Video camera falls off the shelf. Now they think it's a ghost. Boo-hoo. Get it? Boo-hoo.
I love how they felt... Yes, I get it. I love how they felt the need in the synopsis to point out that it's a suburban tract home. Like, they're not just anywhere. They're like, they're in suburbia. And it's terrifying.
Ooh.
This could be you getting haunted in the suburbs.
In your suburban tract home. Don't go for a run around the tract home block. Sorry.
I think we need to get like a soccer mom van and one of those little things that they pull behind the bicycle with the little wagon that the kids sit in and ride around the streets and get haunted every day. Ooh.
Yeah. So they set up a video camera so that they can catch the ghost and be like, we tracked it through the house. Get it? Tracked home.
That's a bit of a stretch.
It's stupid.
I think the suburbia sounds more terrifying than the ghosts. I'd rather be haunted in the city than live in the suburbs.
A good point. Like Evil Dead Rise.
Like Evil Dead Rise. Yeah.
Stuck in a big building. Evil Dead
Yep.
High Rise. Ooh, that's like a crossover. That's not
Ooh.
a High Life and Evil Dead Rise and a High Rise. And anyway,
Yeah.
nope,
We're just
I'm
having all
getting off track.
kinds of new ideas, aren't we?
Yeah, no, our ideas are obviously not good, except for this podcast. It was the only good idea we had. The third and final movie, if you're ready for it, is
Yeah.
the one that I was talking about. Has multiple sequels out. This director also did another kind of different group of them. I'm not trying to, sway you one way or the other. Paranormal Activity also had multiple sequels. I think like 3, 4, 5 or something. I think Sinister had a sequel as well. So all of these movies, had
Okay.
a bit of a following. But the third movie is The Conjuring, which came out in
Ooh.
2013, starring Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Lily Taylor, and Ron Livingston. And let me conjure up the synopsis.
Oh, that was a good one. I like it.
Thanks. Third time's a charm. In 1970, paranormal investigators and demonologists Lorraine and Ed Warren are summoned to the home of Caroline and Roger Perrin.
Wait,
Are you
there's a
okay?
job called demonologist?
Yeah, you're a study of a demon.
Is that something you can major in school? Demonology?
Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
After this
I've-
podcast, you'll probably end up going back and studying demonology because it's super cool.
I'll probably be an expert.
Yeah, you probably already are. Where was I at? Anyway, the parents and their 5 daughters have recently moved into a secluded farmhouse, not a tract home, a farmhouse, a little bit different. Anyway, the parents and their 5 daughters have recently moved into a secluded farmhouse where a supernatural presence has made itself known. Though the manifestations are relatively benign at first, events soon escalate in horrifying fashion, especially after the Warrens discover the house's macabre history.
Nice pronunciation of macabre.
The house's macabre history.
Can I tell you that? Okay. So I'm
No,
sitting here.
You can.
I'm facing a window.
'Kay.
And outside of the window is a papaya tree and another small tree that I don't know what this second one is. Yep. I live in Hawaii, and so does Chris, and we have papaya trees here. But
Well, I don't have one outside my window. I'm in a closet right now. But go ahead. Tell me about your view.
Wait, this is relevant. I promise there's a point to the story.
Okay.
First of all, it's getting dark outside, so it's like gray, cloudy. The sun's going down, so it's like dark and kind of gloomy. And I look out, and when you were listing the title of the movie, right
Yeah.
when you said The Conjuring, a big wind came through, and the papaya tree and the other tree that I don't know what kind it is started shaking. And I wonder if it was a sign to choose that one. Like something was trying to
Oh.
tell me.
Maybe I conjured up the spirit of papayas.
Maybe.
The wind
Maybe there's
spirit
a
of papaya.
papaya ghost.
There could be.
Okay, well, the demonologist, I got distracted. I heard the part where they went to the farmhouse and not the
You were looking at the trees outside and you're like, what happened on this one? Um,
Oh
okay.
boy.
It's fine. I always like to wrap it up and make it sound less scary than it is. So a couple of folks, they study demonology in college. They're like, hey, let's just do this thing. We'll go around.
Gotta
see
write
if
our
there's demons.
thesis.
Yep, exactly. And then the Perrin family, they have 5 daughters. They recently moved into a farmhouse, just to have a good old farmhouse time. The supernatural presence made itself known. Started out benign and then escalated in a horrifying fashion, which is kind of like my fashion in middle school. Horrifying fashion. And then I'll show
That's
you
why you
pictures.
got bullied.
It's 100. Yes. And my bad hair. Anyway. And then the Warrens discover the house's macabre history. So really,
Macabre history. Yeah, okay. Well, they all sound great.
I appreciate your enthusiasm.
I am going to choose the one that the papaya demon outside my window wants me to choose.
That makes sense.
Mainly because I just love that they're demonologists. I want to know what the life of a demonologist looks like. Like, are you credentialed? How much money do you make? Like, what is your day-to-day work like as a demonologist? I want to know answers to all these questions. So I'm going to choose The Conjuring.
Good. And the best part about this that I want you to remember when you watch it is that this movie is based on case files of real paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, which document the
No.
parents' family's supernatural experiences of a farmhouse in the 70s. That's why it's dated in the 70s, because this shit is real.
It takes place in the 70s? Ooh, that
Yeah, well, I
adds to
mean,
the...
which is actually kind of funny because had you listened to the synopsis,
Did you
it
say
starts out with in 1970, but it's fine. You were looking at the papayas. Hey, we all get distracted by random fruit waving in our window.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, this is based on real stuff,
Oh, my
real
God.
ghosty stuff. And guess what? That ghost is in Hawaii now, shaking your trees.
The one from the movie?
Yeah, so make
Well,
sure.
it starts out benign. We just got to figure out how to keep it
Yeah.
benign.
But 9 or 10. That's what I. God.
Benign or 10 papayas from the papaya
Banana or
ghost.
10 papayas. But this movie, you have homework. You need to watch this movie now that you know it's a true story,
Oh, no.
real case files, and now that you know that the ghost of the papayas wanted you to watch it. You have to do what you did for Nightmare on Elm Street when you were like, I'm going to pick a campy movie and try to be scared. I want you to do that for this movie. You have to be in the dark.
Okay, I'm gonna
It has
try and
to
get
be
myself.
scary.
Did you just see me shiver a minute ago? I just thinking about it, gave me a shiver.
Ooh,
Also,
this
the
is already
papaya
a
tree
12 out of
just
10.
shook again.
Oh, goodness gracious. Papaya is giving you the shivers. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, shivers.
Yeah.
Okay, I will do it. I promise I will do it. I will
Okay.
not watch it in like daylight with like fun music in the background. I will
Right.
try and get into it. I'll try and get scared. And I'm actually then kind of nervous about this one.
I'm excited.
worried.
So I want you to get scared by a movie that isn't because of the emotional torment that it provides, that it applies on you. Like I want, yeah. Well, but well, what I'll say though is all the movies we watched so far, which isn't that many, right? 8 or something. None of them left that lasting feeling with me. And it's
Yeah.
been a long time since I've seen a movie that really left a lasting impression to where I think I said this in one of the previous episodes is, I'll watch a movie and I'll be kind of creeped out to where when I'm in the dark, I'm kind of feeling a little creeped out. We haven't hit
Yeah.
that this season. Now I've
Yeah.
seen half the movies. As we continue your education and move on to other movies and newer, bigger movies that maybe make me feel that way, I'll let you know when that happens. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, so I'll be curious to see how I feel about it.
All right.
But so all that to be said, thanks for tuning in, Friday Night Friends, for this week's episode. While we talked a little bit of therapy, a little bit about our wonderful childhoods that we had, that was not as bad as Carrie's.
Can I say something to our Friday Night Friends?
Yeah.
I want you to know that you are welcome here anytime. You will not be bullied here. This is a bully-free zone. We don't condone bullies, and I think everyone this is a safe space for anybody who wants to come enjoy or hate scary movies alongside with Chris and Sam. You're welcome.
That's true. 100%. Invite your friends. Come here, bully-free zone, and listen to us randomly banter about whatever we feel like talking about. On that note, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now so that you can get notified when our episodes drop every week, or at least for the rest of the season. If you haven't checked out our Instagram or our TikTok pages, you can find the link in the episode description. Sam's been posting some fun reels every week going along with these episodes, so you can kind of see the facial expressions we make when we talk about some of this super in-depth horror movie stuff as Sam sticks his tongue out. But yeah, check those out. And go watch The Conjuring, conjure up some popcorn, and we'll see you back next time.
See you next time, Fright Night Friends. Now I'm watching underneath the papaya tree. There's a snail crawling along the fence. I bet that snail can see the ghost.